Welcome to A Double
Double
and Dice
with your host Kim.
and Jocelyn.
Pour your favorite beverage
Pull up a comfy chair.
because we are ready to roll.
Hi everyone, it's Kim. Just wanted to let you guys know that we had a bit of an audio problem, so every time you hear me speaking, you might hear some fuzziness. So we apologize in advance, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome to episode 32 of A Double and Dice. And today, continuing our team building series, we're going to talk about globals, that red blob on a card.
Which will be purple if we ever get Superman.
That's
Kryptonite
right.
Crisis.
I don't know if anybody actually noticed that. I didn't see anybody actually say anything about that it's a different color, but
I noticed it.
I noticed it too. And it's purple, my favorite color.
I think it's a fantastic piece of change to the game after so many years, because the red on that full art text is so hard to read, particularly if you have color issues, like a red-green color blindness.
And even they changed the text too, right? The actual white text.
Yeah, they changed the text. The text on those cards, the ones that we've seen in previews. By talking about this, we're gonna incite a riot. But
or stir up those bad memories. I don't know.
Yeah, those few spoilers we have seen from Superman Kryptonite Crisis have shown that they've taken away the white text outlined in black and replaced it with simply black text, which makes it a heck of a lot easier to read. So, WizKids, when we get that set, as an optician, I thank you. So, thank you for listening. Thank you for accepting feedback. And thank you for making the changes. Sincerely, Jocelyn. P.S. Please send news.
Yeah. Well, we're not talking about that. But yes.
We just did. It's all done.
We hope it actually is going to be that for future if they do actually change it to purple. But since the beginning.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be till Superman. Yeah. Because what's the other set that hasn't come out yet?
Phoenix?
Dark Phoenix. That one I think was already in development before they started to look into changing the text.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, up until this point, and in all of the cards that you have in your binders today, your globals are red.
Mm-hmm.
What's a global, Kim?
A global is... Oh, you want me to in Dice Masters, right? Okay.
Yes. In the context of Dice Masters.
I know, we always seem to go off topic when we say, what it...
That's usually my job,
yeah.
So...
Yeah, what is it? But you're asking me today. A global is... Exactly.
We're in the upside down.
Sorry?
We're in the upside down.
We're in the reverse today. No, that's not the right term. Anyways, a global is anybody can use a global. So it's not only for you, anybody who you're facing, because yes, you can face multiple people in this game. Right?
That's the rumor.
Yeah. Anybody can use it. And they can use it at certain times, which we can get into on your turn or on your opponent's turn.
Yeah, and I think we had like a little detour into globals in, I think it was the Ramp and Churn episode, because we talked about a couple of specific globals there, and we received feedbacks from some of our listeners about those global abilities. So let's maybe just revamp. And if you didn't listen to that episode on Ramp and Churn, you can go back and listen to it. Some of this may be repetitive. If that's the case, we apologize. So to Kim's point, a global ability can be used at certain times in the game, and it's on various cards. It's typically in red text. So when you're playing your game, you have your turn order. And in your main step, both you and your opponent have an opportunity to use globals. Who uses globals first, Kim?
You're the active player.
Unless the active player doesn't want to, and then they
pass priority for the
exactly
to do their
yeah. And then your opponent would have the opportunity to use how many global abilities?
They can use as much as they can, as long as they have the energy to spend for it.
But they have to do them one at a time.
Right, as they got to pass back to you.
That's right. So especially if you're in a tournament play, That's an important distinction to remember. And it does come into play, no pun intended, in certain types of globals you might use and interactions that occur. So it's important to remember that, like, if you're playing casually, your opponent might just say, yeah, go ahead, do whatever globals you want. But if you're playing in a tournament, you really should do one, pass back to your opponent. Your opponent has the or the first player, the active player, has the opportunity to do more or can choose not to, then passes back to you until such time as both of you say no more globals, and that's when the global step ends.
Right. In the main step.
In the main step. When's the next time you can use a global, Kim?
You can use a global when you attack.
When you attack, or in the attack step?
In the attack step.
Right. So in the attack step, again, things happen in a very specific order. So in the main step, you can kind of do it, willy-nilly, however you want. You can use a global, pass priority. You could pass priority to your opponent first before you do anything. But after you've done something, you have to make sure you've passed back to your opponent so they have a chance to respond.
Yeah.
In the attack step, the global window is a very specified area. It's after you declare attackers, you declare blockers, and then you move into the action and global dice window. And that's when you can use globals. And in the same way, it's 1 for 1. So active player can use a global, passes priority. Opposing player can use a global, passes back. Now, same way, if you are my opponent, Kim, because that never happens, we don't ever play Dice Masters together. If I pass priority to you and you don't do a global and you pass back to me and I don't do a global, then
it ends.
That's it. You've lost any opportunity to use your energy. So don't play chicken in the attack step.
Yeah, because if I say pass priority and then you're like, I pass back, and I say I'm done, then you
yeah, and you're like, darn.
Yeah.
And then the other thing to mention that's important is that if you don't have an attack step, if you elect not to attack, that global window just fizzles away. Right. And it just disappears. You can't do anything. So if there's no attack step, and that's an interesting point too when it comes to strategy, which we can talk about when we get to our strategy episode. But your opponent could be like, sure, you're going to attack and might be holding energy for a specific reason because of the attack, and you're like, nope, pass turn, and then all their energy goes to waste, right?
Yep.
So that's something interesting to keep in mind.
Now, when does actions also play, right? So what would go first? Your globals, then you would use your action dice?
So I'm going to look that up on the rulebook, Kim, because I think they call it the action and global window, but I also think there's something in there that says, I've heard people say you have to do action dice first. However, I am pulling up.
You can't, I can't use an action on my turn and then priority, and so you can't mix it up and then your opponent does a global and then you do a global. That doesn't work.
Well, I'm pulling up the rule book right now, which I thought I had open, and I apologize, I did not. So I'm getting it open right now. So let's just read it right from the turn order. I always like to use the X-Men Forever rulebook because that is the most recent comprehensive rulebook that deals with the most common language. I think Dungeons and Dragons came out. What was that one called, Kim? To do Adventures in Waterdeep, Trouble in Waterdeep. The D&D books are not necessarily as comprehensive, I find, as some of the others. Same thing with the WWE. They simplified it and took a lot of stuff out of it. I think in the hopes that they would get new players that would learn with the WWE set and then expand. Okay, so attack step. It says action/global window. Active first, then pass priority to inactive player for globals. So I think if I'm reading that, because your opponent can't use an action die because they don't have an action die that they could use on your opponent's turn, right?
Right. I don't. Continuous die might work.
Yeah, a continuous guy usually has a trigger, which is something a little bit different. I don't think we talked about continuous dice, did we? Really, in our abilities there. Okay,
One
so
that you can use up until your next turn, which is dual defense. So maybe we can take a look at that one after.
okay, I'm just double checking in the. Here we go, the global abilities section of the rule book to see if there's anything in there.
My guess is maybe you would have to do globals first, then action, but
So I'm going to say, barring any other ruling that I haven't Googled yet, and I can check this out after maybe the recording's done, Kim, we can put a note in the show notes if it comes to it, if there's a ruling in there. It says action/global window, active first, then pass to inactive player for globals. So I think that you can use actions or globals interchangeably as the active player. You can do as many as you want because you're the active player. But then you have to pass priority to your opponent. Your opponent can do one, has to pass back to you. If you do something, you pass back. If you don't do something, you still pass back until your opponent says no more. That's it. I'm done. Right?
yeah, you can also wait. You can do one global in your action, pass priority.
Yeah, absolutely you can. But I'm just saying the active player has the option to do all of their globals or a lot of globals all at once if they want before they pass to the opponent, but the opponent can only do one. But yeah, the active player could do none and pass to the opponent. You could do one, you could do 4, you could do whatever you can pay for, really.
So I'm gonna you need to do your action before you could do your action, I guess, anytime
in that window. I think so.
Yeah.
But we'll check the ruling. We'll see if there's a ruling on that, because I have a feeling I've heard people say before you have to do actions first, but I don't know if that's just a rule or if that is like just a habit people have gotten into. So we'll double check. Okay, so there's one other window when you can do a global, Kim. What's that?
Why am I having a blank moment of this time?
Because you never remember this one. We talked about this before.
After resolving your damage?
No. Reactive.
Which we talked about, the Iron Land, right?
That's right, like the Iron Lad. A reactive global is a global that happens if something else happens. So if a trigger happens and you have a global that says if X happens, right? So for example, or when X happens. So the Iron Lad global is a perfect example of that, which says when one of your character dice damages, I'm phrasing this, I don't have it in front of me. When your character dice causes damage, you may pay a bolt. If you do, prep a die from your bag.
Yeah. So one
right?
per turn, you can pay a bolt. When a sword control deals damage to a character die.
That's what I was looking for. Thank you, Kim. There's another one. It's on a different card now, but it used to be the Samantha Wilson global.
Was that a blocking global?
It is a shield, and it prevents damage. Do you want to pull that one up, Kim? Just type in Samantha Wilson.
Pay a shield, prevent 1 damage to a super die or player?
Yeah. What card is that on?
Trish Stratus.
Trish Stratus. Good old WWE. So, yeah. So that is a reactive global. It happens when something else happens. So when something would take damage, you can prevent 1 damage to that something by paying the shield. So in a reactive global situation, you have to use it when the trigger happens. You can't preemptively pay for it. You can't after the fact pay for it. You have to be like, yes, I want to spend this shield to do this thing and not anything else. I am protecting you with my shield. Trish Stratus is protecting you with her shield.
By 1 damage.
Hey, 1 damage is a big deal.
And I think you can use that. It didn't say once per turn. Like, I'm assuming.
That's correct. That is not a once per turn. That is as many shields as you can pay for.
Yep. As long as you can pay for it, you can use it as much as you can.
That's right. So those are the 3 global windows. So you can use them in the main step, you can use them in the attack step, and then if a specific trigger happens, you can use a reactive or a preventative global in that case.
Honestly, I've never used that one up until we talked about it.
Which one, the Iron Lad or the Trish Stratus?
Well, the reactive stuff.
Yeah. I haven't done a lot of reactive global work. However, when Rob and I were opening our Infinity Gauntlet draft packs and playing sealed games, I got quite into the habit of using that Iron Lad global because it was good churn of your bag, helped you clear through your bag, get you more dice, give you a little bit of ramp. So that was really handy. So I got into the habit of doing that. And I think that in something like that, in a draft type format where you have limited selection of what you're playing, I think that that's a really great global to have access to. Now, the Trish Stratus global, previously known as the Samantha Wilson global, had a bit of a comeback in 2019. And that was at the 2019 Worlds in Memphis, back when we could go places on airplanes and play with our friends in person. And both Laurier and Matt from dmNorth used that card on their Worlds teams. And one of the reasons they had it there had to do with a particular card that you might have heard about before called Iceman Right on Schedule. So in 2019, that was a pretty popular card to play. It said, during the attack step, when Iceman takes damage, deal 2 damage to your opponent. Again, paraphrasing, but that's the message. So you could use a lot of people were using him with Magic Missile at the time, which has a global ability, which is very relevant to this conversation, which is pay a bolt, deal 1 damage to target character die. So the idea with that was you go into your attack step, and in the global window, as the active player, you put a bunch of bolts from Magic Missile on your Iceman, dealing your opponent X many damage. So Iceman had a 6 defense on his level 3, still does. So you could hit him with 5 bolts and do 10 damage to your opponent. But if you hit him with a bolt, immediately your opponent, who has that shield global on Samantha Wilson at the time, because WWE wasn't out yet, could say, wait, I'm going to pay a shield and I'm going to prevent that damage to Iceman. And then there's no damage. Or you could say, wait, I'm going to pay a shield and I'm going to prevent 1 damage to me.
Right. So, but if it's 2 damage coming at you, you got to pay 2 shields. Because it only prevents 1.
Right. But you could use the shield to prevent the damage that's happening to Iceman instead of preventing the damage that happens to you. At which point, then the damage doesn't happen to Iceman, so then the damage doesn't happen to your opponent. I know, right? Strategy. So yes,
think about in our strategy.
We're going to have lots of things to talk about in strategy, Kim. Don't worry about it. But yeah, so that's like a global off.
Global off.
It's like global versus global. It's like bolt versus shield. I'm coming at you with thunder. I'm protecting you with my shield. You know, like it's just very superhero-y. So that's the reactive global window. What other things can globals do, Kim?
Well, they can help you in many other ways. There's globals that can help you prep dice.
Right.
Which we've talked about. We've talked about Villainous Pact. There's a lot out there. There's Atlas.
Yep.
Atlantis.
Xanathar.
Twofold. Dice you prep and feel. Psychic die.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Xanathar. You can prep on your turn and on your opponent's turn. So once you pass you priority, you can use any generic energy and you can prep a psychic die.
Yep. Same thing with Counter-Strike, but Counter-Strike can only be done on your own turn.
Yep. And then you got Professor X, Walk with Elias, allows you to prep.
Yep.
2 psychic dice.
So let's talk about that, Kim, because that's an interesting distinction too that sometimes newer players don't realize. So some globals have a restriction on them that say once per turn or once during your turn. What happens if I have that global and you have that global as well?
So in that case, you can actually use it twice.
In almost all cases.
Yeah, in all cases on your turn, if it's the once during your turn one.
Yeah, there's I think a small exception to that, because if it says something like it's the first. So for example, if you think about the global on Becky Lynch's card, which says
In all our conversations.
yes, because she has all of those things.
Yeah.
But that global, if you're not familiar with it, says pay a shield. The first die you purchase this turn is placed in your prep area instead of your use pile. But you can only have one first die you purchased. So you can't use that one twice because you can't purchase a die first twice. I know that's crazy. It's totally unfair. Yeah. But anything else, right?
Yeah.
It's the same with Cree Captain. Is Cree Captain
Cree Captain is a
first die?
purchase cost one, you mean? That's once per turn. The next character die you purchase costs 3 less, so that's the only one-time thing.
Okay, so no, so you can do that if both you and your opponent have that global. Then you could both do it. You could do it twice, right?
Right, because this is the next die you purchase and say...
Yeah, not the first die you purchase, it's the next die you purchase. So yeah, so that's something to be aware of.
So you have double Clayface.
What does Clayface do, Kim?
Oh, Clayface. I'm starting to kind of use it a bit more. Clayface is pay a mask. Once per turn, you may take a die from your use pile, add it to your reserve pool on any energy face.
Nice. And some globals are free, sort of.
Well, they don't cost you anything to do it.
Yeah, this is something that when I first read about these globals and I was reading these globals, I could not make sense of what they were. So this is going back to when the Green Arrow and the Flash set came out, which was we got the first, I think it was the first, at least is my first experience with the Energy Fixer. So the Energy Fixer global says pay 0. And that's immediately where my brain got broken. How can I pay 0? If I'm paying 0, what does that mean? I'm so confused. So these globals say pay 0 once during your turn. You may turn a sidekick die to X energy face, whatever that energy face was. Bolt, fist, mask, shield, right? There was one of each in the Green Arrow Flash set. And then I remember looking at that and being so confused and going on the WizKids rules forum and being so confused and going on Facebook because I just found the Facebook group. I'm like, how does this work? And people are explaining it to me and I was still so confused.
Wait, you're
super confused.
0, meaning I don't use things.
But I have to, how can I pay 0?
Yeah.
Does it have to be on the sidekick side? What if it's an ally? Because an ally is a sidekick in the field. Does it have to be fielded? All of these were questions that I had. So anyway, eventually I learned better how to search the WizKids rules forum, and I learned better how to play this game. Mm-hmm. And I learned that it didn't have to be on its sidekick face. Mm-hmm. And just turning it was the cost of doing it. Or sorry, hang on, that's incorrect. It had to be on its sidekick face. Right. And turning it from its sidekick face to the energy face of the description was the cost of doing it. So you were losing a 1/1 character to get an energy of your choice.
Yes, you're losing potentially a blocker in the field.
Yeah. So that's the cost.
To change it to any other of the 5 sides.
Right. So that's the cost. Well, in this particular case, if we're talking about these energy fixers, it was only whatever when it listed, right? So you would have a shield, a fist, a bolt, or a mask. So they had that in Green Arrow Flash. I don't remember what they were all on because I don't think I have all of them. I think one of them was on a Merlin.
Yes.
Not important. Very old.
Yeah, these are all golden. Sorry. Cyborg, Merlin. I can't remember.
Not important.
Yeah. It might be important. And it was in the Thor. Right?
Yeah. So then in the Thor set, they were the 4 non-basic actions. You had Mjolnir, you had the Bifrost, you had Billy Club. Billy Club was the mask, the Bifrost was the shield, Mjolnir was the bolt. I don't remember what the fist was, but it was whatever that. Yarnborn. Yeah. So those were the ones in the Thor set, also now golden. But now we have something a little different, right, Kim?
We do.
What's that one?
By the way, the other ones were Clayface and Gorilla Grodd.
Thank you, Kim. Completist.
We have Intellect Devourer from a D&D.
So how does Intellect Devourer work? First off, please note, the wording on the card is horrible. You have to look up the errata.
Yes, which I'll look at that. I'll pop that up. So on the card itself, it says pay 0. Once during your turn, you may spin one of your active NPC, also known as sidekick. In a D&D world, they call it NPC, but it's still a sidekick.
Yep. Do you know what NPC stands for, sidebar? It took me forever to figure that out.
Non-player?
That's part of it. Yeah, player. Character. Non-player character. That's an NPC. So anyway, sorry, you were saying turn one of your NPC.
In one of your active NPC character dice to an energy phase, bracket, move it to your reserve pool, end bracket. But there was an errata to that.
That is the errata.
Okay, that's okay. So
yeah, that's the errata. If you opened up the card and looked at what was on the card is a bit of garbledy-gook. It was very poorly worded. Sorry, WizKids. But they fixed it. They errated it. So
input pay the 0 part. Pay the cost.
Yeah, and they didn't specify it had to be active. So whereas the other energy fixers didn't have to be active, aka they didn't have to be in the field zone. They could just be sitting in your reserve pool and you could flip it. With the Intellect Devourer Global, you have to actually field the sidekick first and then turn it to the energy face of your choice. But you do get the choice of any energy face you want, including a question mark, which we all know a question mark can be spent as any energy type. So that is a handy type of global to have.
There is another one.
What's that one?
Black Dwarf.
Yes, it's a fist one.
Right. So it's one like Yarnborn and it's one like Gorilla Grodd. So it's paid 0
but
per turn. On your turn, spin any other psychic dice in the field or in a reserve pool to its fist face.
Yep. So, and that is the only energy specific one that we have in Modern. And it came out in the Infinity Gauntlet set. The draft pack set, the last set we got. One day there will be more dice. Okay, so we can use them to get different energy types now, right? Globals, yep. Them being globals. We can use them to reset our bag or get ramp by prepping dice with things like Villainous Pact or Atlas or Xanathar. We know that we can use some of them once during our turn. We know that we can use some of them multiple times if we have 2 copies, i.e. you have one and your opponent has one. Those are things that you can do. What's another popular thing to do with globals, Kim?
Which one is more popular? There's you can use it to buff your characters, I say.
So what is buffing?
So adding an attack value to your character die, or adding a defense value to your character dice. Or you think the other one, which is forcing, well, I shouldn't say forcing. Well, it's kind of forcing. Anyways, having your opponent characters attack or block.
Okay, so let's talk about the buffing. right? Which is adding an attack or a defense. So attacks, there's a lot of different ones. They're often bolts or shields, right? So is it Power Surge, Kim, that has the bolt buff on it?
Power Surge is the... If I can... There we go. Is the bolt.
Yeah, so you pay a bolt, target character die gets +1 attack, right?
And I just had the other one that had... it uses a fist, actually.
Yep, Anger Issues uses a fist.
Anger uses a fist. I thought Invulnerability used a bolt.
I think that's a bolt.
Yeah. Do we even have a shield or a mask one? No, I don't think so.
Not for an attack. There might be a shield one for a defense. What can add defense?
Yeah, there's Bullseye can do bolt with A. Drax is double shield for 1A and 1D.
Mm-hmm.
Hulk is a fist for 1A.
Which Hulk?
I think the uncommon has it, and the what was that? The common one as well.
It might be all versions in Infinity Gauntlet, but there's also some on other versions of cards in the past. Which ones add defense aside from the Drax, which is 2 shields?
Yeah, so let me change that to a D. I'm saying because I'm scrolling and I don't see any other than here we go. Oh gosh, how do you pronounce his name? Morgrok.
Sure, that's good. Mogrok. Mogrok, I'm with you.
That's from, was it the Orc team pack? He's a shield to pay for a D, to add 1+D, and then Mortarion.
Okay. And then isn't there something else from the Warhammer kit that you liked, Kim, on your Orbital Strike team?
Why do I always forget which one that is?
Doesn't it give everything?
1A plus 1D, I believe.
And it's like 2 fists or something.
Yes. And you know what? I don't know why I always forget which one it is.
Don't you have your Orbital Strikes team saved that you can look it up?
My Orbital Strike team is always changing.
But that one's always on there.
I didn't learn about that one until like a few months ago. Okay, let's see if I can. Nope. I found Double Mask, not. And it was from the D&D set, was it? Okay.
No, I think it's from.
Because I honestly can't remember.
Here it is.
Oh, you found it.
I found it. Primaris Aggressor. It's on Firestorm and Boltstorm gauntlets. Pay 2 fists. Once per turn, all character dice get +1A. So it's once per turn, battle for Ultramar. So a fun trick, if you did not know this, if you wanted to search a card to see if it references an energy type of some sort, whether that's in a global ability or in the card text, you can just type in the word fist, for example, into the Dice Coalition team builder at tb.dicecoalition.com under the filter text field. And in this case, knowing that global costs 2 fists, I typed in fist, and up it came.
I wish there was a filter to do globals only. Well, I guess you can just put global in the text, but
You can filter global. Yeah.
global, but with a check mark or something. Instead of typing it out.
Truby, if you're listening, the keeper of the team builder. So that is, an example of globals that buff. So then, Kim, you said force attack and force block.
Yeah. So must attack, must block.
Right. So those are interesting globals. Some of them have restrictions on them, like once per turn. There's different energy types of those types of things. There's is it Doctor Strange that has a mask global that says opposing character die must attack this turn?
Target character die must attack, so not opposing.
Target character die.
So which is interesting. I guess you can target yourself.
I can't think of any reason why that would be necessary, but who knows? Nick, is that necessary? Let us know.
Yeah, you can use if you need a mask for certain character abilities. Wong. No, not Wong. What's his name? Is it
Turk Barrett. Turk Barrett says when you spend a mask, you do a damage something.
So that can be a possible way. Just you're going to attack anyways, so might as well just use it, and you're using the global to trigger off Turk.
Super rare Turk Barrett Mind Gem says, while Turk Barrett is active, when you spend mask energy to use a global ability or field a character die, deal 1 damage to target character die. Is that really fair, though?
Doesn't say anything else.
Unless there was something preventing your die from attacking, and then the whole thing would fizzle.
Yeah, but you could do it.
I'm objecting to that strategy. I'm just putting that out there.
Anybody do it, but you, now that we're talking about it, you could do it if you read it that way. That's always right.
So while we're talking about must attack, there is a bolt must attack on the Scott Hall card out of the what's the word I'm looking for? WWE set. He's from the tag team pack. And then until we got WWE and Infinity Gauntlet, the only must attack that was in Modern is Black Widow from Avengers Infinity Campaign Box. And that one was restricted to once per turn. Whereas the Doctor Strange Global and the Scott Hall Global are not restricted to once per turn.
There is one with a mask.
Yeah, Doctor Strange.
Nope, there's another one. A new
Mr. Fantastic.
promo card that may have come out and
Oh yeah, Slingers.
Yep.
I forgot that had that on there. Okay, and then why would it be beneficial to make your opponent's die attack? That kind of gets into strategy, but
if you're willing to take that damage, you can get their character out of the field by non-blocking it.
Yep. If you have something that triggers because of a KO, like an ability that a figure triggers because of a KO, and you want your opponent's great big die to attack you so that you can get KO'd, or something that triggers on fielding and you need a reason to get out of the field, maybe your opponent's not attacking because it doesn't want your die to refield. Force attack is a good way to do that.
Yep. So it depends on how you build your team, and maybe there's some annoying characters out there that you're like, well, they can attack and you just don't block, and they go through and you got to cycle again.
Yeah. So there's also a must block in Modern, also from the WWE set, which is on the Booker T basic action card. And it's a shield. Target superstar must block this turn if able. And superstar is the WWE language for character. So again, that's a thing to do if you're attacking and you want, for a specific reason, your opponent to block with a certain die.
Yeah, and I know we thought there was another one, but it is the only block one in Modern.
Yeah, it's the only one in Modern. There's all kinds of things the globals can do. Globals can deal damage. We talked about Magic Missile a little while ago, which is not a Modern basic action, but there's a new version of that. It's called Wand. It's a little bit different because it has a bit of a drawback for yourself. Yeah. So the global on Wand reads, pay a bolt, deal 1 damage to target character die, lose 1 life. So you pay the bolt, but you're also going to take a life. So if you're going to do that, you've got to have a really good reason to do it, because your opponent, you're going to lose life to do it. So and it's something like an Iceman that we talked about a little while ago. That could be a good trade-off because you're doing 2 damage to your opponent, but only 1 life to yourself. So as long as you're 1 life ahead of your opponent, you're winning.
Yeah.
Hashtag winning. So yeah, globals are very versatile.
Yes, and as I said, and you probably heard me say, I never used to use globals when I first started playing the game.
Me either. I was like, what's this thing?
I don't understand this. I won't use it. It doesn't benefit me. Oh, did I learn my lesson?
Well, I think as we've talked about before, this game is very complex, and it's more complex than it seems at first blush, because you do have the basic way of playing, right? Attack, defend. But then as you layer on more things, the complexities are revealed. So having that strategy, and then another important thing is if you're going to put a global on your team, you want to be darn sure you can use it better than your opponent can.
Yes, because strategy again. If they can use it better than you, you are in trouble.
Yeah.
Either
You
for
know,
you
some
or it's them.
Yeah, and sometimes I build teams with the hope that someone else is going to bring a global I want, because I don't want to bring it because it's going to be too beneficial to other teams. But I'm assuming that my opponent probably will. The Clayface Global is a good example of that. When you're playing higher level competitive play, it's very common to see that global on teams because it's very versatile and allows you to get any energy type you want as long as you have a mask in the first place. And possibly multiple energies. You could be trading one mask for two of something else if you've got a character die or a basic action in your use pile that you're going to Clayface in by paying the mask. So in that case, I don't usually bring that on my team. So I hope my opponent brings it. I know how to use it if it's there, but I don't want to give them the advantage of having two of those on the team, one for themselves and one for me, right? So that does happen often. And I often come into games saying, I hope you brought me a prep global. Is there an Atlas or a Resurrection or a Xanathar or something over there? Because I didn't bring one.
I think I'm going to say 90% of the time people bring a prep global. But
it's very common. So yeah, so similar to Kim though, I was the same with globals. I didn't understand them. I never used them. It wasn't until I started playing a little bit higher level, different people, and seeing how they were used that I could see how important they were to the game.
So globals. I don't think we missed anything in globals.
I'm sure we missed tons of things on globals, Kim, but I think that's a good introduction to globals.
Yes. Don't get.
Do you have a favorite global?
With it. Primus? No.
Primaris aggressor?
I don't. I mean, I do and I don't. I don't have one that I always put on the team. No. Usually, if I need a prep global, I'll just find anyone that fits. Not like one particular one, right?
Mm-hmm.
I do like the Becky Global because the Becky Global is the same as the Golden Age Rip Hunter Global. And
Rip Hunter's chalkboard.
Yeah, I used to love using that because if I needed a character and I know I needed it next turn, it's the way to bring it over and you guarantee you have it rolling the next turn. I would say I do like that one. I know it's unfortunately on Becky, but
yeah. Just bring her for the global.
No, not. I don't have really a favorite one that I put
on. So I like globals that are sort of versatile, but maybe more better for yourself than your opponent. So one of the ones that I got into the habit of using a lot of for a while there when I was playing lower cost teams, lower cost meaning lower character cost, was the Supreme Intelligence Global. And that one came out before we had the Becky Global. And it said, pay 2 generic and prep a die with a purchase cost of 2 or less from your use pile. So you could spend something, buy something for 2, and then on your opponent's turn, you could spend 2 energies and move it over to your prep area. So it is a bit expensive, but it was very versatile. And not everybody was running characters or dice that were 2 cost or less. So it could be one of those ones that was better for me than my opponent. When I first started playing with globals, one of the globals I played with a ton was Magic Missile.
Yeah.
Which is payable, deal 1 damage to target character die. Because it's really easy to remove stuff that way, but it's also really easy for your opponent to do that.
Yeah. And everybody always used to somehow get a lot of bolts to do it. So,
yeah. Speaking of, that's a good global, the Techno Global. I'm going to pull that up. Okay. Do you want to pull up like the most expensive global you can find? So Techno is a card. Also, it's from the Justice Like Lightning set. It's a team pack that came out at the same time as Avengers Infinity campaign box. And it says, pay a bolt, Spin any number of your sidekick dice in your field zone and your reserve pool to their bolt side. If active, move them to the reserve pool. So essentially, for one bolt, you can turn every sidekick that you have active or in your reserve pool to more bolts. And it was also a very important part of that Iceman team that was running around in 2019 because you needed bolts for the Magic Missile Global, and it was handy. So that's a really cool global. I quite like that one because you can turn as many of those to bolts as you want. Did you find an expensive global, Kim?
There is a pay of 4.
I feel like there's a 6 one too, but go with the 4.
I don't know if it was modern. The pay of 4 one, I honestly know there's a pay of 4 one where you... Is it a buff global? But for the life of me, I can't.
Yeah. It's from Ric Flair. Woo!
Good Ric Flair.
Pay 4 generic. Target superstar die gets +4A.
Yes, I don't think this 6 one was in modern.
I don't care if it's modern. It costs 6. We should talk about it. Was it on a Hela?
Yes, it was a Hela. Because a Hela in...
It was from the Thor set.
Expensive.
Yeah. Pay 6. Return target die from an opponent's field zone, prep area, or use pile to its card. That opponent then chooses target die from your field zone, prep area, or use pile and returns it to its card.
Seems expensive.
But it's pretty cool. There was something that lets you use a global ability for free. I think it might be a spark ability.
Now Beholder?
Oh, I don't know. So I think there's a spark ability, which spark was a keyword that came out in the Adventures in Trouble in Waterdeep set that allowed you, if you rolled the die on its burst face while that character was active, you could use a global ability for free. But my Dice Coalition team builder is not doing good filtering right now.
It's Xanathar. Is it Xanathar?
Oh, is it Xana?
End of turn, you may use a global ability for free.
Is that when he's fielded?
That's a spark ability.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so you get to use one free global ability. So Xanathar has to be active, and then when you roll a die on its burst face, any die, at any point, you can trigger the spark ability, and in this particular case, it lets you use a global ability for free. So if you didn't have to pay 6, Kim, for that Hella Global,
Golden,
or 4 to give a character die +4 attack, then that's not so expensive, is it?
Hey, you know what? Keeping energy back is not a bad thing sometimes.
So there you go. So that is, I think that's all we have to say about globals.
Yeah, there's a lot of globals
for now,
and they all do something different.
Amazing things.
Yep, that will either definitely help your team and just make sure that it doesn't help your opponent.
Yeah. So what do you think about global abilities? Do you use them? Do you not use them? Do you put them on your team and forget they're there? Do you hope your opponent brings you global abilities? Let us know what you think in the comments or any of the other places you can reach us, which we'll talk about at the end of the episode.
Yes, remembering what your opponents have as global abilities helps as well, too.
That's also important.
Know what your opponents have. So mailbag?
Mailbag. Pretty heavy this week. We got lots of mail this week. And most of it, surprisingly, came from the YouTube. So our last episode was on basic action cards. So we heard from Matt, Dr. Teeth. He says, basic action cards, or backs, are usually the last part of my team build as well. Unless I need them as part of my win condition, Orbital Strike, of course, they tend to become my utility pieces. Usually I like them there for a useful global of some type. Global. Especially if it can free up a character slot for something else, like when you mentioned Walk with Elias. Even when I do get a back on the team, I struggle a lot with selecting the second back. Then he says also #always go full turtles.
Always.
So always. I think that was in reference to our dice social theme for April. So thanks, Matt, for providing feedback. We appreciate that. Also on YouTube, we heard from Rob Pettifor. Rob Pettifor is from Breath Weapon X, right? I think so. So Breath Weapon X, Rob. He says, "Yeah, Jocelyn is correct." There's more to it than that, but I just wanted to leave that for emphasis.
What is he correct about?
Wild energy counts towards cross pulse. When I'm building teams, I generally choose the win con and then decide how I'm going to try and make that work best, so I don't necessarily pick the backs last. So that's interesting. But also, I was correct.
But yeah, that's cross. What was the other cross?
Cross pulse. Crossover?
For characters like double energies, you can't do it, right?
Huh?
You have to use the same energy type if it's
Right. So if you have a cross pulse character, it has 2 energies that you need to purchase it. 2 different energy types, like bolt shield. The question we were talking about, I think, in the purposes of the episode was, does a question mark count as a bolt or count as a shield in that case? And the answer is yes. To trigger a cross pulse ability, you have to only spend that particular energy type, bolt shield, in order to trigger that ability. Is that where you were going with that, Kim?
Yeah.
Okay, and then we heard from Donnie, also on the YouTube. And we had a bit of an interaction there with Donnie and Rob. So Donnie says, sometimes I put my basics on my team that make no sense in having like a dead card, example, surprise attack, or something that just costs way too much for what it does, i.e. ingenious tactics. Can you look that one up, Kim?
Yeah, I've never heard of that one.
Just so I'm not providing my opponents with an opportunity that could backfire for me. The Shazam might be fun with that new action from Infinity Gauntlet that has energized Besmirch. So Shazam is the one that when you use an action die, you can use a copy of it, I think.
Yes.
Okay. You nailed it on Cross Pulse. You can use the question mark. I typically pick actions after the fact unless I need to try something like Slingers, because that's a new card. Mm-hmm. Rob said, yeah, dead cards are a decent strategy, but they should be planning their team to not depend on them. The more fun way of doing things is put really good ones in, but also ways to punish them for using them, like the promo Poison Ivy. And I don't know what that one is. And then Donnie said, yeah, and the Eye of Agamotto card that came out in the Doctor Strange pack. So lots of cards to unpack here. Did you find ingenious tactics, Kim?
So it's from Heroes on a Half Shell.
Okay.
Campaign box. And it's a 5 cost, and it prevent all combat damage to each of your attacking character die until end of turn.
Nice.
And surprise attack, that's an interesting one because that's when I would buy off you.
What does that one do?
Because it's a 2 cost, and it's come up in 1, 2, 3, 4 sets. Age of Ultron, Iron Man, War Machine, Thor, and it's Infinity Gauntlet. And it's
okay.
2 cost, deal 1 damage to target character die. On a burst or double burst, instead deal 2 damage. So I wouldn't actually consider a dead card. I would actually use it against you.
Okay. And then Besmirch says target opposing character die loses its ability text until end of turn, not including global abilities. And on an energize, if you roll it on the double energy phase, it says deal target character die 1 damage.
Now the Poison Ivy card they're talking about, there's only one promo of that. It's the plant token one. So while Poison Ivy is active when an opponent uses an action die, feel the plant token. It has 0A and 2D. When Poison Ivy is active, once during your turn, you may sacrifice one of your characters in the field zone and deal 2 damage to target player. So sacrifice your plant token and you're pretty much doing 2 damage.
Okay. And then we should talk about Slingers because they brought up Slingers there. So Slingers is the new basic action card from the new Play at Home kit from WizKids, which you can buy from shopwizkids.com or shop.wizkids.com or something like that. We'll put it in the show notes. Kim, remind me to put that in the show notes.
Okay.
With an asterisk, because apparently they're changing warehouses and shipping is delayed.
Yeah.
At the beginning of your attack step, Slingers, your opponent chooses one of your character dice that can't attack this turn. 2 target character dice can't block this turn. So that's an interesting card, and I actually quite like it. It's a 5 cost, which is kind of expensive. Your opponent probably isn't going to buy it, but if you plan for it, then it could be very worthwhile. And then the other card he brought up was Eye of Agamotto. Yeah.
They're talking about, but Eye of Agamotto is one of those cards that you place it on like a basic action card. So you put the actual die on a basic action card, and each of the versions of Eye of Agamotto does something different with it.
I think it would probably be either the All-Seeing or Mystical Conduit.
So the all-seeing one is, when used, place this die on a basic action card. Well, Eye of Agamotto is on a basic action card. That basic action card, oh my gosh, costs 1 more for your opponents to purchase. While on a basic action card, Eye of Agamotto can be targeted as if it was in the field zone.
Let's just call it Aggie.
Okay. And the other one was using the
Mystical Conduit. So it says, when used, place this basic action card. Place this die on a basic action card. While Aggie is on a basic action card, when your opponent uses this basic action, Aggie deals them 1 damage for each copy of Aggie. Aggie can be targeted as if it was in the field zone. So that's one that punishes someone, right? So I think that's where both of those punish your opponent.
Has a neat global.
Yeah. What's the global say, Kim?
Pay 1, the generic. The first action you buy this turn is put into your bag.
Cool. It's like an expensive big entrance.
Well, I think I used this once for Orbital Strike, actually.
I remember lending you this die, so yes, you did.
Yes, but it was the other one, the amulet one, which buffs.
Yeah. Okay, so lots to unpack there.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say the general feedback is some people pick basic actions last, some people pick them in the middle, and some people might focus their team around them, depending on what they're looking at. And then in general, it does seem like people have trouble, the people that provided feedback anyway, have trouble picking their second basic action. They can usually pick one, but then the second one's either like a dead card to Donnie's point of view, or you have trouble picking out what it's going to be, and it just ends up being like a space for you to put a card that has a global on it to help you out. So there. No. So we have one more. It's a double piece of feedback, and it's a big one because it came from our friend Nick. So Nick wrote. He wrote me several paragraphs onto the Discord. So he said, thoughts on backs, basic action cards. It really depends on the team I'm trying to make. Sometimes they're a strong part of the win con, meaning I know I'll want to purchase the action and use it. Or maybe not purchase directly. You've got to love using them through Morph, other Becky, or the Joker. So what's other Becky, Kim? You know what he's talking about there? Becky Lynch, the man, says when Becky Lynch attacks, you may choose an unpurchased, non-continuous basic action die and roll it. If it shows an action face, you may use its effect to immediately return the die to its card. I think he calls it the other Becky because it's like the third best Becky.
That nobody uses?
Rarely. Morph is a card that was from, I believe, X-Men First Class. So Morph says, when fielded, choose a basic action card. When Morph attacks, use the double burst version of its effect. And that is the uncommon Morph Change of Heart. So that's a way to use a basic action. Or the Joker. Do you know which Joker he's referring to, Kim?
I think that's the one we talked about, wasn't it? When you attack, you can roll a basic action.
Yeah, new and shiny. When the Joker attacks, you may roll a basic action die from your use pile. If you do and it rolls an action face, you may use the effect of the face you rolled. Afterward, place the die in your bag. So that is some of Nick's thoughts on basic actions. He does say basic action cards are easy slots for a global, though. Often that's where he adds simple ramp options like Villainous Pact, Walk with Elias, Counterstrike. Also great for static field to defend the heavy hitters or pump globals like Anger Issues or Power Surge. We didn't talk about static field, Kim. How did we forget that one? Let's finish Nick's comment, then we'll talk about static field. If you plan to be the heavy hitter. In these cases, though, it's good to know how the character alternatives like Professor X equals Walk with Elias, Static Field equals Kate Bishop, or even ones that are close, Counterstrike, Xanathar, Villainous Pact, Atlas. So again, I think he's referring to what we talked about before is do you put the global on the character spot or do you put it in the basic action slot? Because there are some that are very similar, and depending on what you need on your team, you might need the character slot better for a character, and then you could put the basic action with the global ability on it. He says, I certainly have my go-tos, stable of go-tos, but backs of the slots I'm least likely to actually experiment with unless it's an action-focused team. Favorites include Orbital Strike, obviously,
Orbital Strike,
Eldritch Blast, and Wild Magic. So, what's Eldritch Blast, Kim?
Oh, I've used this one card once, not bad. So Eldritch Blast. Draw a die from your bag. Deal damage to target character die or player equal to its purchase cost. Return the die to your bag.
Yeah, so that's a pretty cool one. Wild Magic says, choose 2 of the other basic action cards that players brought this game. You may use a copy of each of their effects with a single burst. So that one can be tricky because how many basic action cards have single burst? Not a lot. And that's what his next line is here. Sadly, Wild Magic could use some help, but I find it pairs well with Raised Shields as a way to get Overcrush every time, since it's the burst effect. Also goes great with characters that have a tune, Manchun, which does triggers damage when you use a basic action, or Wasp, as it's 2, maybe 3 actions for 1. It's on a team for one of my most elaborate combos using Doctor Strange that copies the effects of an action for mega fun with a whiteboard.
Okay.
And then he says, hashtag win by confusing the opponent. Spoiler alert, with Doctor Strange, 1 Wild Magic with Raised Shields turns into 6 actions used with Raised Shields going off 4 times. That's +1A, +1D, and Overcrush to up to 8 different characters. I need the whiteboard. Nick, can you write that out on a whiteboard and take a picture and send it to me, please? Because I'm confused.
You need a Nick video.
Yeah. So there you go. And then when he sent me that feedback, I reached out to him and asked him what he thought of the team building series so far. Because Nick is a very established player. He's, high level, right? He's experienced, he's played a lot, and he's way better at math than me. And he said that he's enjoying the series. He thinks that you and I offer some unique and different ideas. So that was cool to hear, Kim. He did say we both tend to focus on more casual approaches and bring up different ideas than more competitive versions. And it's also fun to hear the 2 of us discover cards in our discussions. And he said, by the way, if you're ever uncertain on a rules question, you probably send me a message and I'll try to clear it up as best I can. Cool. So really well thought out feedback this week, everyone. And we really appreciate that. And thank you so much for sending it to us. And we love sharing it with you. And we love hearing what you guys think. So please continue to provide feedback, positive or constructive. We take all of it. So that we can learn and get better. So we appreciate that. Now we're going to take a quick detour back into global abilities, because we didn't talk about static field at all. And that's a super important type of global ability.
Right. So static field came up in 2 sets.
One is Battle for Ultramar from Warhammer. And the other one is the Justice campaign box.
Yep. And it's a 2 cost if you ever want to purchase it. But the global, The global on it is pay a mask, remove target attacking character die from combat.
Right. So it's a really good global to have handy if you are expecting to go up against something that's going to attack you and you don't want it to, like a Becky Lynch. Because if Becky Lynch is attacking you, you can choose not to block her, and then in the global window, spend the mask and push her back to the field zone. Right?
I hardly use static field, but a lot of people do put it on their team.
It's a handy global to have. There's a good use for it. There's also a proactive use for it. So we talked a lot, or I did anyway, talked a lot in this episode about Iceman. And you don't really want to KO Iceman, and you don't want Iceman to go through for like 4 damage. You want to keep him in your field. If you ever have to actually attack with him to trigger your attack step, using static field to bring him back at the end of turn is a handy way to do that. Or another good one to pair it with would be my favorite hashtag Rear Spider-Man Forever. When he attacks, he spins target character die to an energy face of your choice. You probably don't want him to go through. You want him to come back and then keep doing that every turn, right? You don't want to have to churn him through your bag. So static field's good for that because you can attack with him, trigger that, and then pull him back so that you can do him again the next turn. Right? I did have one other piece of feedback that I forgot to mention, Kim. I did hear from our friend Chris over at the Ministry of Dice. And he said, yes, it was definitely him that said that, which was in reference to, we were talking about unblockable characters in the last episode or 2 episodes ago. We were talking about characters that are unblocked and then they have to go through your use pile into your bag and come back around and get churned. And I had said, I think it was Chris that had said to us, had said before, not to us, but had said before, that he doesn't like unblockable for that reason, because you've got to, churn it, right? You've got to get it back around again. And he said that was definitely him. He 100% said that for sure. So there you go. So that was all the feedback, Kim.
Thanks, everyone.
Pardon?
I said thanks, everyone.
Yeah. So Kim, do we have a dice social coming up?
We do. We just finished our April one, but we do have a May one, and we do have a date and a theme. So Dice Social for May will happen at the end of the month, May 29th, Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern. And our theme is flippity flip. Call it.
So it's dolphins?
No, dolphin. No, I can't do a dolphin. No. It's called that because every card on your team is a do-it-yourself card, including your basic actions. So you will have a card on one side and on the other side a different card. The cards can be from any set but must be the same character using the same dice. And each turn so when you actually start playing this, each turn you may flip over a card on your team. You cannot flip over the same card you have previously flipped until all cards have been flipped. So if you need to put an indicator on that to know, bring meeples, dice, bring whatever you want. Basic actions will also be flipped each turn and can be any basic action, not just what you brought. You may, and then as we roll into the next rounds, you will not reset your cards in your next game. It will remain as is when the game ended and follow the same rules per above.
So essentially, sorry, go ahead.
The bans for this is actual flip cards, so you can't actually bring the one card flip card.
Okay, and it's a golden theme, means you can pull from any set ever. And again, focusing on our green traffic light theme, which is come to have fun, not to come to win in 3 turns. We want you to play for the full 35 minutes and have a social time with your opponent and chitter chatter with them and make some new friends. We had some new players out this month. So that was really good. We had a new player join us, which was awesome. And we love to have new players out. It's a very fun and welcoming environment. So I think of this as I have 2 of the same character I want to play, which happens sometimes. Sometimes you have multiple versions of a character that you want to play on your team and you don't know which one to pick. I think about Gazer, for example, from the Adventures in Trouble in Waterdeep set. All three of those cards are good cards in different contexts. So it's like, how do you pick which one to put on there? Right? Now you have to only choose two out of three. You don't have to choose one. You can choose 2 out of 3. You get 2/3 of your favorite cards. So you have one side is one side is the other. And like Kim said, at the beginning of your turn, you flip one card and you have to flip all of your cards before you flip them again. Right?
Yes.
And then you also get to do it with basic actions, which is kind of cool. So, it's so easy to pick 2 basic actions. We just talked about how people have trouble picking 2 basic actions. Now you have to pick 4.
I see this is golden, so maybe there's ones they really like. That.
Yeah. Kim, should we put something in there that says if you can't have, like, all 4 of your basic actions have to be different? Like you couldn't put both of those static fields, for example.
Yeah, or 2 like big entrance and all that stuff.
Yeah. I think we should do that too. So you need 4 basic actions as flip cards, and then you're going to need 8 characters as flip cards, and it would just need to be 2 versions of the same character, and again, from any set you want. So whatever you'd like to play, this is your opportunity. Build your own flip card. Right, Kim?
It should be very fun to play. I think
I think so. I think it's gonna be fun.
Flip it and not flip back, so it changes the gameplay as you move through your rounds.
Yeah, I think it should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. So you'll be able to find that right up on dm-north.com. Well, on that note, I think we've gone kind of long today. So let's wrap this up. So where can you find us if you want to provide us feedback, like Nick and Donnie and Rob and who else? Did we hear from someone else? Matt. How did I forget Matt?
Get you.
I was just kidding. I didn't forget Matt. No, anyway, so where can you find us? So you can leave a comment on our post on our website, which is dm-north.com. You can leave a comment on any of our social medias, which you can find us at dmNorthTV on the Facebook and the Twitter and the Instagram. We are also dmNorthTV on Twitch, twitch.tv if you want to leave us a note there. You can reach us on Discord. You can send a note to Kim at SuperK through direct message, and you can reach me as Jostitch, Joce Stitch, because I have rebranded. And finally, you can send us an email at tripledpodcast@dm-north.com. So until next time, on a double and dice.